Good morning. So today is our first lecture and it is about mammalian histology. As you all know, histology is the study of microanatomy of tissues, organs and cells of the body, where you must have studied last 2 years different histological slides. You can observe the internal structure of any organ system like liver, kidney, and parts like skin, tooth. So with that you can observe what exactly the cells, how cells are situated or located at particular place and what are their functions. So you are going to study the internal structure of any organ or system. So basically today we are going to start with first is the vertical section of skin. The skin and associated structures makes up the integumentary system. Okay. Skin protects terrestrial organisms from desiccation. Desiccation means drying. Okay. So basically, it will not allow to dry the internal organs of the body. It gives protection. It is formed from the uh, ectoderm. It's a ectoderm precursor. So in during the development, it covers the entire embryo and it forms the entire skin. It is the biggest organ or the largest organ of the body. It protects the body against physical, chemical, and biological attacks. It helps to regulate body temperature. It is used to communicate to other individuals, and a skin derivative provides nourishment for the young. You must have seen during the winter season. Winter season basically skin gets dried, and in the summer you'll see that it will get sweating. So that means it will try to regulate the body temperature and it will try to maintain the body temperature at 37 degrees Celsius. So mammalian skin basically composed of two layers, the dermis and epidermis. It is also having the lower layer or that is called as hypodermis. The skin, if you'll see the histology, has four layers of cells. It is referred to as thin skin. The entire body of the organism or any mammalian it consists of made up of thin skin. Only the palm and what you can say the skin of palms and the soles of the feet, that there only you will find the thick skin. Okay, so basically it is made up of four layers as we are going to discuss today. That is the stratum basal, stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum, and stratum corneum. Okay, these four layers which forms the skin. Now we are going to see the first layer, that is the stratum basal. Stratum basal, or it is also called as stratum germinativum, is the deepest epidermal layer and attaches to the epidermis. You must have seen in the first picture, if you'll go behind back, here you can see the three layers of skin, that is epidermis, dermis, and subcutaneous, that is the hypodermis. In this particular figure, if you'll see in detail, epidermis is the outer layer, then it comes the dermis, and then the hypodermis. At the same time, you can see the different types of cells are there. So different types of glands are there. There are some nerve endings. There are dermal papillae, which we are going to see later on in this presentation. That how these different type of cells actually they are located and how they help in different functions. So stratum Basally is the deepest epidermal layer and attaches the epidermis to the basal lamina. Below lies the layer of the dermis. The cells in the stratum basala bond to the dermis through the intervening collagen fibers called the basement membrane. The stratum basala is a single layer of cells primarily made up of basal cells. A basal cell is a cuboidal shaped stem cell that is precursors of keratinocytes of the epidermis. Now, most of this stratum basala is made up of keratinocytes. Okay. Now, all of these keratinocytes are produced from this single layer of cells, which are constantly going through mitosis to produce new cells. So these most of these what you can say that these epidermal cells or stratum basala, they are kind of stem cells. Continuously they are regenerating. The old cells are dying and new cells are forming. Now, as new cells are formed, the existing cells are pushed superficial away from the stratum basala. Two other cell types are found dispersed among the basal cells and in the stratum basale. The first is a Merkel cell, which functions as receptors and is responsible for stimulating sensory nerves that the brain perceives as touch. So, as we all know, that skin has again a sensory organ. So, whatever feel of touch you observe, okay, somebody will touch you, you'll get the feel of fire or change in temperature. That all is because of these receptors which are present on in the uh, epidermal layer of skin. The first is a Merkel cell which function as receptors and is responsible for stimulating sensory nerves that brain perceives as touch. These cells are especially abundant on the surface of the hands and feet. The second is the melanocytes, cells that is responsible or that produces the pigment called as melanin. Now, whatever color of our skin is due to the pigment known as melanin. Melanin gives hair and skin its color and also helps protect the living cells of the epidermis from ultraviolet radiation. So main function of melanin is to protect the cells body from the ultraviolet radiation, and that's why you must have seen that these foreigners, though they look very fair, they come to India or tropical countries and they lie down on the beaches only because they want to activate their melanin pigment. In European countries or temperate countries, the sunlight is not sufficient to activate melanin pigment, and that's why these people they look fair and white. But our complexion is comparatively better, and we are protected from many skin diseases only due to the presence of pigment called as melanin. It also protects the living cells of the epidermis from ultraviolet radiation. So it is a growing in a growing fetus. In a growing fetus, what in a growing fetus, fingerprints form where the cells of the stratum basale meet the papilla of the underlying dermal layer, resulting in the formation of the ridges of your fingers, and that is recognized as fingerprints. Now, these fingerprints you must have seen that they are very unique, and no one, no two persons have similar kind of fingerprints, and that's why they can be even after aging also the fingerprints will not change. So mostly those who cannot sign, government takes their fingerprints or thumb impression. Okay. Stratum, next layer is the stratum spinosum. Stratum spinosum is a spiny appearance due to the producing cells process that join the cells via a structure called a desmosome. The desmosomes, now you going to see in this particular picture, the desmosomes interlock with each other and strengthen the bond between the cells. The stratum spinosum is composed of 8 to 10 layers of keratinocytes formed as a result of cell division in stratum basale. Interspread among the keratinocytes of this layer is a type of dendritic cells called the Langerhans cells, which functions as macrophages by engulfing the bacteria, foreign particles, and damaged cells that occurs in this layer. The keratinocytes in the stratum spinosum synthesizes keratin and releases a water repelling glycolipid that helps to prevent water losses from body, which makes the skin relatively waterproof. Okay. Now the next layer which we are going to see is stratum granulosum. Stratum granulosum has a grainy appearance due to the further changes in the keratinocytes as they are pushed further from the stratum spinosum. The cells become fatter, their cells membrane thicken, and they generate large amount of keratin, which is fibrous, and keratohyalin, which accumulates as lamellar granulars within the cells. These two proteins make up the bulk of the keratinocytes mass in the stratum granulosum and give the layer its grainy appearance. The nuclei and other cells, the nuclei and the other cell organelles which disintegrate as the cells die, but keratin and keratohyalin and cell membrane persists that later from stratum lucidum. The stratum corneum and the accessory structures of the hair and nails. Now, this stratum granulosum is the third or fifth layer of flat dying cells. It shows a nuclear degeneration and it contains dark staining keratinohyalin granules. It contains lamellar granules that releases lipid that repels the water. Now the next layer in this context is the stratum lucidum. Is a smooth translucent layer of epidermis located just above the stratum granulosum and below stratum corneum. This layer of cells is found only in the thick skin of the palms, soles, and digits. The keratinocytes that compose of stratum lucidum are dead and fattened. These cells are densely packed with elidin, a clear protein rich in lipids derived from keratohyalin, which gives these cells their transparent appearance and provides a barrier to water. So basically, it will, as we have seen, that it will not, skin will not allow the internal body organs to die. It will not allow to desiccate it. Okay, so that is the main function of skin, and which is due to this stratum lucidum, stratum granulosum, and spinosum. Stratum corneum, which is the next layer. The stratum corneum is the most superficial layer of epidermis and is the layer exposed to the environment. The increased keratinization of the cells in this layer gives its name the corneum. There are usually 15 to 30 layers, or you can say 25 to 30 layers of cells in the stratum corneum. This dry dead layer helps to prevent the penetration of microbes and the dehydration of underlying tissues, and provides a mechanical protection against the absorption for the more delicate underlying layers. Cells in this layer are shed periodically and are replaced by cells pushed up from the stratum granulosum. In the case of palms and in the case of soles of feet, it is stratum lucidum. Okay, it is replaced by stratum lucidum. The entire layer is replaced during the period of about 4 weeks. So continuously these cells, new cells are forming and the old cells going down and then getting degenerated. Okay, so the next layer is the dermis. Dermis, it might be considered the core of the integumentary system as it is distinct from the epidermis and hypodermis. It contains blood and lymph vessels, nerves, and other structures such as hair follicles and sweat glands. Okay, you must have seen our skin also produces a watery substance called as sweat. Okay, so that glands are present which secretes the sweat, ज्याला आपण घाम म्हणतो. तर तो घाम सिक्रेट करण्यासाठी वेगवेगळ्या ग्लँड्स असतात की ज्या डर्मिसमध्ये प्रेझेंट असतात. A finger like projection or fold known as the dermal papilla is found in the superficial portions of the dermis. Dermal papilla increase the strength of the connection between the epidermis and dermis. Greater the folding, stronger is the connection made. The dermis is made up of two layers of connective tissue that composed an interconnected mesh of elastin and collagen fibers produced by fibroblasts. So the important thing that you have to, when I'm explaining you all these things, you have to observe in the diagram. The next layer of dermis, important layer of dermis, that is the papillary region or papillary layer. Papillary region is made up of loose areolar connective tissue. Therefore, collagen and elastin fibers of this layer form a loose mesh. एक जाळीसारखं मेश सारखं हे जे कोलॅजिन आणि इलास्टिन आहे त्याचं फायबरचं एक जाळी तयार केलेली असते. The superficial layer of the dermis projects into the stratum basale of the epidermis to form finger-like dermal papillae. Within the papillary layer are fibroblasts, a small number of adipocytes, and an abundance of small blood vessels. In addition, the papillary layer contains phagocytes and defensive cells that help combat bacteria or other infections that have suppressed the skin. This layer also contains lymphatic capillaries, nerve fibers, and touch receptors called the Mazinger corpuscles. Now, next out of this is the reticular region or reticular layer. This is a dense, irregular connective tissue. Now, after the papillary region or papillary layer, this is the new layer, which is the reticular layer or reticular region, and it is lies underneath the papillary layer, and it is much thicker than the papillary layer. It composed of dense, irregular connective tissue, and it contains interlacking collagen and elastic fibers. It is packed with glands like sweat glands, duct, fat, and hair follicles. It provides strength, extends, extensibility, and elasticity to the skin. Okay, and the collagen fibers which are present here provides structure and tensile strength, with strands of collagen extending into both the papillary layer and the hypodermis. In addition to collagen binds water to keep the skin hydrated, that is moist. Next layer is the hypodermis. The hypodermis is a layer directly below the dermis and serves to connect the skin to underlying fascia of the bones and muscles. It is not strictly a part of the skin, although the border between the hypodermis and dermis can be difficult to distinguish. You cannot distinguish the border between the hypodermis and the epidermis, hypodermis and dermis. The hypodermis consists of vascularized, loose, areolar connective tissue and adipose tissue, which functions as a mode of fat storage and provides insulation and cushioning for the integument. Now we are going to see the different glands which are present. At the same time, the skin has also consists of hair. Hair is uniquely mammalian features. No other animals are having hair on their body. The developing epidermis invaginates into the dermis to form the hair follicle. Now, next another thing we are going to see is about the skin glands. What are the different types of glands which are present in the skin? Now, here we can see that different types of glands it's mentioned. They are specialized exocrine glands found in the dermis, sebaceous glands, that is the oil glands, sudoriferous glands, that is the sweat glands, then carminaceous, that is the wax glands, and mammary glands, that is the milk glands. Okay, the first is the sweat glands. The sweat glands, or it is also called as sudoriferous glands, are coiled tubes in the dermis connected with the surface by narrow ducts. They are situated within and under the skin. Depending on their secretory mechanism, they are classified as merocrine sweat glands and apocrine sweat glands. Two types, merocrine sweat glands and apocrine sweat glands. Skin contains approximately 3 lakh sweat glands. Okay, approximately 3 lakh sweat glands, which disperse all over the body. Merocrine sweat glands regulate body temperature. The sweat gland consists of a single long tube. Now you can see it in this picture. It consists of a single long tube. The highly coiled lower end of the tube forms body of the fundus. The body is composed of the secretory part of the gland. It is positioned in the reticular layer of the dermis or in subcutaneous tissue. The duct connects the secretory elements to the surface of the skin. Duct travels upward from the dermis to epidermis. Here it becomes spiral to reach the surface of the skin. Its orifice is funnel shape. The upper part is a funnel shape. The wall of the tube which makes up the gland is lined inside by epithelial tissue. The cuboidal or the polygonal cells are part of the secretory part which is present in a single layer. Now sometimes these pseudo-stratified cells can also be seen. In these larger sweat glands, myoepithelial cells are seen between the epithelial cells and basal lamina, which are contractile in nature. They are responsible for helping in secretion out of the gland. In the duct, the epithelial lining consists of stratified cuboidal epithelium. As the duct passes through the epidermis, the walls are formed by the very elements that form the epidermis. Sweat glands has very high water content. Evaporation of this water cools the body. So after sweating, you must have seen the body gets cool. Okay. So when you are running, doing some exercise, you get lot of sweat. Okay. If you are walking, and due to that, your body temperature rises. But after sweating, the body temperature get control. Sweat glands are innervated by this cholingic nerves. Sweat glands contain water, sodium, potassium, chloride, urea, ammonia, and lactic acid. These apocrine sweat glands are confined to some parts of the body, which includes the axilla, areola, nipple, perianal regions, and the glands like penis and some part of the female external genitalia. These glands don't develop before puberty and are stimulated by sexual hormones. They secrete milky, odorless secretions and are important for sexual attraction in mammals as well as marking their territories. So this particular glands which gives a particular kind of smell to the sweat, and they will develop only after the puberty. Next is the sebaceous glands. These sebaceous glands are embedded in the dermis. Although although they empty into the hair canal of the hair follicles, it is not visible clearly. Deeper cells of sebaceous glands are smaller with intact nuclei. Size of the cells increases with increase in the sebum in them. The nuclei later condense, becomes darker and irregular in shape. So in this photograph or diagram, you can see the structure of sebaceous gland. Now we are going to see next is the mechanic mechanoreceptors which are present on the skin or inside the skin. These are some of the mechanoreceptors or they are sensory receptors that responds to mechanical pressure or distortion. Normally there are four main types of uh, we can say glabrous skin, and they are Pacinian corpuscles, Mygenous corpuscles, Merkel's discs, and Ruffini endings. Now, first is the mechanoreceptors, which we are going to see is the Pacinian corpuscles. This Pacinian corpuscles is a pressure receptors located relatively deep under the skin. They are a pressure receptors and they are located under deep in the skin about 2 millimeter, and also in various internal organs. In the skin, it detects rapid vibratory pressure and touch with optimal sensitivity at 250 Hz. Under the microscope, it is seen like an onion. It is a capsule that is 0.5 to 1 millimeter long and 0.3 to 0.7 millimeter thick and consists of several concentric layers. The center of the capsule includes the core. The center of the capsule includes the core. So here you can see these receptors which you can see in the diagram. Okay. So there are two diagrams and you can see these four receptors. So this Pacinian corpuscles, they are basically responsible for understanding of the pressure. The center of the capsule includes the core where the unmyelinated terminal part of the afferent neuron is located. As they are sensory receptors or mechanoreceptors which receive signal from the skin and that signal goes to the brain, and then only we understands the how the feel of touch or feel of the pressure. The capsule consists of lamellae composed of fibrous connective tissue of fibroblasts separated by gelatinous material. The lamellae are very thin that modified squamous cells. The center of the corpuscles is the inner bulb, which a fluid-filled cavity with single afferent unmyelinated nerve endings. The first node of Ranvier is also located inside the core. Several mitochondria exist in the corpuscles, indicating high energy production. Next is the myxiner corpuscles. This Meissner corpuscles or tactile corpuscle, tactile means touch, are responsible for sensitivity to light touch. They have highest sensitivity and lowest threshold when sensing vibrations lower than 50 Hz. They are rapidly adaptive receptors. They are rapidly adaptive receptors. Mycinous corpuscles are encapsulated, unmyelinated nerve endings, which consist of flattened supportive cells arranged as horizontal lamella surrounded by connective tissue capsule. The corpuscle is between 30 to 140 in length, mm or μm in length, and 40 to 60 μm in diameter. Μm is a micrometer. Any physical deformation in the corpuscles will cause an action potential in the nerves. It will cause an action potential in the nerves. Since they are rapidly adopting, the generated action potentials quickly decreases and eventually ceases. This is the reason why one does not feel one's clothes. If the stimulus is removed, the corpuscles regain its shape, and while doing so causes another volley of action potentials to be generated. So in a simple words, you can see that whenever you get the feel of touch, somebody will touch you, then only it get activated. Okay, it sends the message to the brain about the touch, and then again it comes to its normal structure. Or then next is the Markle's discs. Markle's discs are sensitive to touch. The information they provide are those regarding the pressure and the texture. They are classified as slowly adapting mechanoreceptors. In the mammals, Markle nerve endings have wide distribution. Markle nerve endings are found in the basal layer of glabrous and hairy skin, in hair follicles, and in oral and anal mucosa. In humans, Merkel cells occurs in the superficial skin layer and are found clustered beneath the ridges of the fingertips that make up fingerprints. The hairy skin Merkel nerve endings are clustered into specialized epithelial structures called touch domes or hair discs. And the last one, that is the Ruffini endings. Ruffini endings is slow adapting mechanoreceptors, which is considered to exist only in the glabrous dermis and subcutaneous tissue of the humans. This spindle shaped receptors is sensitive to skin stretch and contributes to uh, kinesthetic sense of and control of finger positions and movement. Ruffini endings are located in the deep layer of the skin and registered mechanical deformation within joints. More specifically, angle change with the specifically up to 2 degrees. Okay, so any change in the angle of 2 degrees, Ruffini endings are considered to be useful for monitoring slippage of objects along the surface of the skin, which allows modulation of grip on an object. They also act as thermoreceptors that respond for a long time. So, in case of deep burn, there will be no pain as these receptors get burned off. Okay, and the last module of this particular topic is about the free nerve endings. These free nerve endings basically they are unencapsulated and have no complex sensory structures, unlike those found in the messenger cells or Pacinian corpuscles. They are the most common type of nerve endings and are most frequently found in the skin. They mostly resemble the fine roots of plant. They penetrate the epidermis and end in the stratum granulosum. Okay. They infiltrate the middle layer of skin and surround hair follicles. Free nerve endings can detect temperature, mechanical stimuli, touch, that is mechanical stimuli like touch, pressure, and stretch or pain. Okay, that is called as noci- nociceptors. Thus, different free nerve endings work as thermoreceptors, cutaneous mechanoreceptors, and nociceptors receptors, a sensory receptor for painful stimuli. Hence, they express polymodately means they are responding to several different forms of sensory stimuli. Okay, with this